Please confirm if you can hear me, guys. For some reasons, I think I'm not audible here. Alright, so I've been speaking, but I'm not sure anybody can hear me.
Um, Hello, please let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Sorry about the technical issue. I think it's a combination of network and uh, I would say configuration. Can anyone hear me? Please let me know in the chat. I can see some of you already on YouTube on the chat. Let me know if you can hear me. Hello, JP Novkid. Hello, Oyekun. Hello, Kolo Chinemerem. Hi, Natasha. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me, okay? Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you. All right. So I think we can actually start. Apologies for that delay once again. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to be discussing design thinking today, okay? So I'll be sharing my screen shortly. I'm just going to share the link to today's session, the material. I'll share that with us shortly, okay? All right, just give me a second to do that. Let's see. Yeah, some of you might have noticed that Amaka is trying to join the call, but I think the network is yanking out of the call, right? Okay. All right, so you can check for those of you on Telegram, you can check. You would see the link to the material. If you are not on the Telegram channel, I think you should try to find your way there. Right, the link to today's material have been shared on Telegram. So I'll go ahead, share my screen. Today's session should not take more than 30 to say 35 minutes. Right, it's just to give you a fundamental knowledge to design thinking. All right, so you can also confirm once you can see my screen. Yeah, the network is very bad actually. Very terrible. It's been like that since morning. Let's see. All right, guys, confirm if you can see my screen. And thanks to Amaka for the material again. Okay, how many of us can see my screen? Please confirm if you can see my screen. Thank you. Okay. All right. So this session was meant to be handled by Amaka, but due to the network, uh, yeah, due to the network issues, I would have to, handle it from here. All right. So, aha. Okay, I can see you guys said you can see my screen. Okay. So let's reduce this volume. Okay, so when we talk about design thinking, this is what I want us to, pay attention to first, right? Before we start speaking to before we start speaking to, these case studies and these things we need to take note of as well. Let's start off with understanding what we mean by design thinking. Okay, so this is the key word here. Design thinking is a problem-solving methodology, right? I want us to keep this in mind. Design thinking is a problem-solving methodology that emphasizes understanding the user, right? The challenges that the users are, facing, the assumptions, right? Yeah, and redefining the problem to identify alternative strategies and solutions. Okay, so if you have heard of the term user-centered, design approach, there are lots of things to actually discuss when we say user-centered. But let's just focus on this for now. So design thinking in itself is a problem-solving methodology. Okay, so you are presented with a problem. Say you have a mobile application. Um, yeah, you have a mobile application. Let's say for a school, right? You have different types of users. You have students. You have the teachers. You have the parents. You have the administrative arm of the school, and then they are faced with a particular problem, and this problem have various touch points. So they have features that the users would make use of, the students would make use of. They have features that the parents would make use of, maybe like tracking students' location, that's their children's location, right? They can have multiple children in the school, so which means they are able to identify their children on the application as well. If I have three children attending a school and the school has a mobile application, it's expected that I as a parent should be able to see the information of my kids, right? The three of them, and their information should also be tied to my information as the parent. I should be able to identify the details of their class teachers or teacher if it's just one. I should be able to identify some of the activities such as the lesson plans, the lesson notes, if possible, the books or the materials that are assigned to their library, which is then also tied to the classroom. You know, if you are trying to build a solution like this, right? I've given a lot of description already. Meanwhile, that is not all. If you are trying to build a solution like this, applying design thinking to solving the problem would be very crucial, right? What exactly is the problem? Okay. The client will not walk up to you and say, I want us to build a solution that can do this, that would look like this, look like that. Yeah, some clients will try to give a lot of details as to how they want their, solution to be built. But let's just assume, right, that the client walk up to you and say, our students, we need a way to have the parents, see and basically view every single thing that is happening in the school as regards their children, right? Every single activity. Okay. That's the problem you're presented with. Okay. Then next you have to probably sit down with the client or sit down with, let's say potential parent and, or someone that, their children is already in the school. You sit down with that person and you start asking questions. You try to understand what, they would expect to see on that application, right? Basically that is, you get to the phase that we call empathy, right? You're trying to empathize. It's a stage, and this stage is all about understanding the people for whom you are designing for, right? We are designing for parents, we're designing for the teachers, we're designing for the school administration. You sit down with them, try to understand their day-to-day activity. What exactly do you do manually that we are expected to also have on this application, right? Of course, you don't necessarily need to put the question to them that way. You go by asking them these questions. Okay, what do you do in your let's say you walk down to the school today, right? What's the expectation? I mean, in terms of your job, you're a teacher, right? So they begin to walk you through their activity during the day, how they get to probably go through some of the things that they were working on before they get to classrooms, before they take attendance, before they decide to teach a particular topic, right, or before they teach their own subject, right. So you walk through this these levels with them, and you try to see how you can design the application to also make it very comfortable for them to navigate based on their existing workflows. Okay, so the empathize stage is about understanding the people for whom you're designing for, and this would involve observing, engaging, and empathizing with the users to gain insights into their needs and challenges. Okay, so what's the expectation, right? As a user, as a teacher, what do you want to be able to do with this application? Okay, and what are the challenges you are having with it, with the existing system If there's an existing one, of course, what are the challenges you are having, right? You walk them through, try to understand that challenge, and um, you can then try to provide a solution, right? So long you understand the challenge. The empathize phase is very important. If you don't understand the problem that the user is having, if you try to assume that problem, if you try to assume that problem and you try to come up with a solution with your assumptions, just your assumptions, that is definitely not going to fly. It's definitely not going to work. I mean, it might work, but it's not the ideal thing to do, right? And I'm saying it might work because it's possible that they've provided these requirements for you, and you probably do not have to sit down with the users, right? But in an ideal environment, following the design thinking approach, you need to listen to the users, understand what they want, listen to as many reasons that they can give. One advice I usually give people, um, is to go back and learn how to ask questions, right? When we start covering UX in detail, we'll definitely get to that part where we teach you how to ask questions, teach you frameworks, right? Frameworks that we've applied, we've tested, and it works very well. uh, Frameworks around asking questions. Okay, so remember, this is our usual pattern. We have the example, and we also have the practical case study. Okay, so the example we have here: a design team conducts interviews with elderly individuals to understand the challenges they face with technology. And of course, I mean, when you conduct this set of interviews, you are asking questions, you're trying to understand, the exact challenge they are having. It can be a specific application that you expect them to use or you want them to use. And by the way, this does not fall, applying this methodology is not only when you are building mobile applications or web applications. Okay, keep that in mind. If you are working with an organization that is into producing smart gadgets, right, smart devices, it can be a television, it can be your refrigerator, it can be your smart oven, right? So long there is the presence of that. I mean, now just to clear the air, you must not have an interface first before you apply design thinking. Design thinking can be applied when you're building a product, any product. Okay. But for the sake of what we are covering today, and looking at the fact that we are speaking to UI UX in product, we're looking to UI UX design. My examples are basically tilted to speaking about mobile and web applications. Okay, but keep this in mind that this can be applied to scenarios where you're building any type of product. Okay. All right. So we have our practical case study. Always take a look at that as well. So we have a company, right? And this company, um, okay. So this company's research process for redesigning a shopping cart. Let's see. I think there was a mistake here. Mhm. Okay, so I think there's something missing from this. Please, Amaka, this should be corrected so that we can ensure that we're passing the right information here. Okay, so I think what this case study is trying to refer to here is a company that decided to redesign a shopping cart because they observed that the shoppers were having issues probably navigating or trying to use the shopping cart efficiently, right? So yeah, they observed these issues and they decided to come up with a redesign. Of course, this would involve asking the shoppers and the store employees those questions that I mentioned, right? Trying to understand the pain points. Okay. When we say pain points, we are referring to the challenges or the specific problems that the users are facing, right? So store employees, right? These are definitely one of the user group here. We also have the shoppers, which are the users that have signed up, right? Another user group. So, what exactly is the challenge they're having, right? We'll conduct those interviews, sit down with a few shoppers and a few employees, and we'll start asking as many questions as possible. Okay, what exactly is the challenge, right? And sometimes you can also ask them for what they would expect to see, right? What would you expect or what would you prefer, to have rather than what you have now? How would you prefer this experience to look like? rather than what we've offered you right now. Okay. So yeah, the next step we have here, this is the define stage. Okay. And by the way, while I'm explaining, I'll be looking at the charts. So we already have some questions. Give me a second. I would love to move this to a separate screen so I can see it properly. Okay. All right. I think this is much better. Okay. So while I'm looking at this tab for the presentation, I can also see the questions. Okay. So Akinwale is asking, one of them might not be comfortable with the app. Um, that's where you know the problem and know what to work on. Okay. Did somebody ask another question, or you're just adding to what I was saying? Or I think maybe you're just adding to what I was saying. All right. Thanks for that, Akinwale Samuel. One of them might not be comfortable with the app. Well, so the thing is, eventually, when you start building your solution, what you're going to be paying attention to is, the metrics, right? If you have like 10 people, you sit like 10 people down, and they give you different pain points, right? That doesn't mean you are going to implement every single thing when you are trying to come up with a solution, right? You have to also understand that even as a designer, your goal, I mean, the goal of the application should also be aligned with the goal of the business, right? So if the users are saying, just imagine the user saying, "Oh, I enjoy using your application, but sometimes I find it difficult to even come on board and use the application because I don't have an active subscription. I would prefer that we take off the subscription feature and allow it to be free." Right? I mean, that's kind of weird, right? So yes, we are trying to empathize here. We're trying to understand, the problem you're having, but what you're telling us right now doesn't really sound like what we would consider a problem. It sounds like you're trying to rob us. Okay, so well, I mean, at some point, if you think maybe they might have a point. Maybe the pricing is just too much, right? If that's what they're trying to say, that's a different thing. So, of course, when we say empathy, we are trying to, discuss with the users to understand how you can make, things better for them, right? What are the pain points they are having? What are the potential ways to make it better, right? To improve that experience. That doesn't mean you would, compromise on the purpose of your solution or the purpose of the business, except you believe that the business goals for some reasons doesn't align with the expectation of the users. Then of course that's a different conversation. Okay. Yeah. So at this stage, the define stage, we tend to focus on bringing the information that you have gathered during the empathize stage, and you are now trying to define the core of the problem, right? You've gathered this information, and by the way, I mentioned that when we start covering UX, there are different things we would get to teach you. For example, under the empathize phase, we'll teach you how to use what we call empathy mapping, right? So we'll teach you how to use or how to apply empathy mapping, so you can gather some of this information, very well. So, for example, you can get to gather the pain point of each user. You understand the user group. You understand how the user perceive this application in terms of the usage, how they want to use it, right? Or how they've been using it even. Okay, and their expectation too after knowing the problem. Okay. So in the define stage, you bring this together. If you gather this information from like 100 or 50 or 20, users, you bring this information together to now define the core problem. Okay. Because I mentioned the fact that you have 20 people give you their expectation, from your application, right? What they want to be able to achieve. That doesn't mean you proceed to just implement the whole thing, right? So you put this together, and you tend to align this with the business goals as well, before defining the problem. Okay, so the goal here is to frame the problem in a user-centered manner. All right. I think my network is it's probably coming from my end or from Akinwale's end. It seems like he's just hearing me now. I can see your comment. Thank you very much, Akinwale. Okay, so we have our example here, right? After observing students struggle with time management, the problem statement could be how might we help students manage their time more effectively? Okay, okay. All right, so this is our example, right? We tend to always show these examples on our materials because I think or we think as an organization that it's quite easier for people to look at these things from case studies and practical examples based on what we've seen out there, right? You have observed the students, who happen to be a user group or a target user for a sample application, right? So we have an existing already, and you as a UI UX designer, right? As a product person, designing this solution, you've observed, that the students are struggling with time management, and you come up with a problem statement. This is an example, of course. How can we, help the students, better manage their time? Okay. So now that is what you've, come up with as a problem statement. You can then, begin to think around coming up with a solution. You brainstorm with the other stakeholders on your project, and you try to come up with a design that helps them manage their time better. Okay. Yeah. So, and the practical case study we have here, a team working on an educational app defines their problem statement based on the feedback from the teachers and the students. Okay. So, keep that in mind. The define stage come next after the empathize stage. The next one we have is the stage where you begin to ideate. Okay. This is still part of our design thinking, flow. This is the third stage. All right. So the ideation stage involves generating a wide range of ideas and potential solutions. The goal is to explore as many ideas as possible without judgment. What we're trying to say here is basically, performing brainstorming, right? Having brainstorming sessions with, other designers, with other stakeholders. I mentioned this already. So it can be developers, it can be, product managers. You bring everyone together and try to, uh, allow them to come up with ideas, right? Come up with ideas. So we have our example here, a brainstorming session where participants use techniques like crazy eights to generate multiple ideas quickly. So, you just sit them down and you ask them, okay, what are, possible ideas that you think we can apply to solve this problem, right? Of course, we've heard from the user. We took down, as many notes as possible. We also understand the user's expectation. In fact, we went as far as taking down what the user thinks, right, that would be ideal for them, right, probably based on their previous experience with other solutions. Okay, we're able to take down this information. Yeah, so you come up with these ideas. We have our practical case study, Google's ideation process, where they encourage employees to think of 10 solutions, right? 10, 10, like so many solutions, right? More than 10 solutions. Okay, so come up with different solutions and ideas that are 10 times better than existing solutions. Okay. um oh yeah, I think that was 10x. Okay, so ideas that are 10 times better than the existing solution, that's what we mean by 10x solutions. Okay, so they encourage employees to think of 10x solutions. All right. Sorry, I read this wrongly initially. So the idea is, for our practical case study, this is the Google ideation process. They encourage employees to think of 10x solutions, ideas that are 10 times better than the existing solution. Okay, so that's a good one. Of course, you're going to, you're going to hear a lot of crazy ideas, but that's the point. Eventually, if you have 10 people give you, for example, you have 10 people give you, different ideas that they believe, works better than the existing one. What you then proceed to do is to poke holes into these ideas. Okay, what if this happens, right? That's a pattern I often use myself, right? What ifs. Okay, the what ifs pattern. You give me a solution, what you think is a solution or an ideal solution, and then I begin to look for ways that this solution might, become a mess, right? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? Um, it's a good way to actually, have these brainstorming sessions because, um, if you just decide to proceed with an idea that was generated on the fly, you definitely stand a chance of messing the whole thing up, right? You have to ensure that you've thought through that idea. You've asked as many questions as possible. In fact, you try to always look at the negative sides. What if this happens? What if that happens? And then when you're sure that on the negative side you don't really have like a big issue, or you don't even have an issue whatsoever, you can then move down to the positive side and say, okay, so now we've seen that this is not going to be something bad for the users, right? It doesn't cause any harm. It doesn't mess up the flow for the users. Okay. Now, what on the positive side, right? On the bright side, what are the benefits of this solution that we're providing? Does it really solve the problem? I think that should be the big question, right? Does it really solve the problem? Are the users familiar with this solution, right? Or this pattern? Okay, are they familiar with this pattern? All right. Yeah. So then after ideating, say you have like 10 ideas that your team came up with, right, during that brainstorming session, and you eventually, pick what you and your team consider to be the best option based on different factors, right? You've checked and you believe, let's say idea number two out of a range of 1 to 10 ideas. Idea number two happens to be a better option because of different reasons. Since you've considered that idea number two is a better option, the next thing you want to do is to quickly prototype. All right. So for those of you that don't know what this is, when we say prototype, what you are trying to do is to create a very simple and yeah, basically very simple, sample, right? You're trying to create a very simple sample that you can put in the user's face, right? You can have them test this. Okay. So yeah, and this sample must not be like the actual work. It can be a paper prototype. It can be a prototype that you worked on with Figma. Just designs. Um, you don't need too much colors. You just want to ensure that by the time you show these users, they can identify that, oh, you mean if I do A, B, C, D, this solves my problem. Okay, is this good enough? Is it looking, simple? Is it looking easy to navigate? You don't need to even ask them. You allow them use it. Allow them use the prototype, and then you can figure out if it's easy or if it's difficult for them to navigate. Okay, prototyping involves creating a simple and inexpensive version of your product or solution, and it allows you to explore and validate your ideas. Okay, so a team creates a paper prototype of a mobile application to test its usability with potential users. Okay, so just what we've said already. And for our practical case study, this is we have an example of how Airbnb used prototyping to refine their booking interface, leading to the improved user experience that they have today. Okay, so that is the stage, the prototyping stage. The next stage that we now have here, which is the final stage of the design thinking process, would be to test, right? Yeah, and this is the stage that involves putting your prototype in front of the real user, to gather the feedbacks. So yeah, and this is an iterative process where you refine your prototype based on the user feedback. So yes, you presented the prototype to the user, and they tell you, oh, I mean, this is confusing, or you just observe them, right? You observe them, and during the process of the users trying to navigate, you probably notice that they are finding it difficult to locate a particular item you have on the screen. Um, Now you are already taking down these feedbacks, okay? The users are finding it difficult to perform maybe action A or action B. Remember your products, I mean, I teach people that when you're looking at a product, it's a great idea to pay a lot of attention to the actions that can be performed on the product. Even as a designer, pay a lot of ideas to actions, because actions, are the things that you map. So I'll give an example. Let's take a look at WhatsApp. A lot of people use WhatsApp. I believe probably everybody on this call now, uses WhatsApp. If uh if I say let's try to map some of the actions on WhatsApp, you're probably looking at chat, right? You want to chat someone, you want to view status, right? These are actions, right? Send chat, view status, delete message, update status, right? So these are actions that I'm mentioning here. Okay. What else? What else do we have? Let's see. Which other status? Which other action do we have on WhatsApp? Create group, right? And I mean, there's so many of them. Okay, so there are so many of them. If you look at these actions, you definitely understand that there is a flow in each action. So if I say create group, you're already thinking about it right now. So pull up WhatsApp, right? You click on new chat, you select new group, and you probably want to add the people to the group first, right? That's a particular action that you are now trying to create a flow from that action. So if you and I today, right, we are the designers, and we say, okay, how do we create the new chat action, right? What would the flow look like? We say, okay, you click on the floating, we'll call it the floating action button, which is that item that shows the plus, the message and the plus sign there on WhatsApp. Okay, so you click on that, it takes you to your chat or your contact list right there on WhatsApp, and you search for a particular contact. You select that contact, and you can send a message to that contact, right? After selecting that contact, you have started another action, which is send message. You type in the message and you send. So you see, we now have different flows. Okay. If we are designing WhatsApp for the first time and we've created that flow, we now put that prototype in front of the user and say, try to chat with someone. Okay, let's see if they can, follow through on this simple flow that, I mean, we consider it to be simple. We are designers, but then you are trying to verify if it's actually simple with a real user, and then you have the user click on the new chat icon, right? But then they are finding it difficult to even, see the contact they want to chat with. Maybe there's no option to scroll or search, right? And they start looking for contacts, and they spend like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes looking for one contact. Then of course there's a pain point, right? The new pain point right now is that they probably want to just search. Okay, in fact they want to just search, but they can't because we did not include a search option, right? So your new design, I mean, that's why we say is an iterative process. You have to iterate, and because now we've realized that okay, there's a new problem. um Users are unable to search. If you are just designing this or even thinking about it without testing with the user, you probably would not think of that search until you get to that point, right? And yeah, so when you get to that point, you realize that okay, the users won't search. So now let's say that we have realized this. We are designing this action for new chat, and then we proceed to fix it. How do we fix it? We implement a search option there, and we allow users to type the name of the person they are trying to search for. Okay, so we'll come back to the potential user, or the user that is already using the solution, maybe like the previous version or something, and we ask them, okay, now go ahead and try to start the chat again, new chat. They get there, they perform the search, they are happy that okay, now we have search, so it makes it easier for me. And these people now decide to search with the last name, for example, right? Meanwhile, your search only works with when you start searching from the first name. So which means if I have someone called John Doe, if I search with John, I can find that contact. But if I search with Doe, I won't find that contact. Now, I mean, this was an actual issue, right? Back in the days, some mobile applications, most of you might have experienced it. You probably even experienced it today, right? You have applications where you can search with the with the first name, but you can't search with the last name, right? So when this, I mean, when you realize that this is now the new problem, even after implementing search, it's a pain point, right? And you have a new you have a new you have a new implementation to work on. You have a new you have a new problem that you have discovered, right? Because the user was trying to use it, they put in the first name, it worked, but now they're trying to search for another contact and they don't know the first name, so they decide to search with the last name, but you can't find that particular contact when they know very well that this particular contact exists, right? And by the way, I'm just trying to make you understand some of the things that might come up when you already started implementing, right? Because you tested initially, and probably you tested with the wireframe. Okay, you tested with maybe something you just put up with papers or cards, right? You did not actually implement anything on the mobile application. Okay, when they tried it, they told you, okay, I want to be able to search with the name. They did not specify. Now, after implementation, you realize there's a new problem. You have to go back again and also indicate that you can search and you can use filtered options, right, to filter for the contacts you have. Okay, so you keep going back to the drawing board. You keep making adjustments, based on the feedbacks you're getting. Is a continuous process. Okay, and eventually you get to solve the problem. and you solve it in a way that the users will be comfortable with. So, conducting usability tests with users to identify issues on new website design, that is exactly what I've been, trying to explain with different examples. That is an example we have on this material, and we have a practical case study of how Tesla uses uh, user testing to iterate on features in their vehicles before the final production. Okay, I mean this is something I know of very well. Yeah, so they usually release like a first batch to some users that they can now gather feedbacks from. All right. So that's what we have in the material, that we have received. And I believe this explanation, was clear. But of course, if you have questions, go ahead and ask. If you have, if you need more clarification, please go ahead and drop your message in the chat. For those of you that joined late, this session is recorded. Of course, it's live, so you can access this again even after the class. And the link will be shared on Telegram as well as Discord. Okay. Okay, so I think NX Kings is asking, is prototype different from wireframing? Well, so wireframing is when you are actually doing something on Figma or maybe on paper, right? So it is not right. It is not different. Prototype, the term prototype can be applied in different areas, right? Now, prototyping in design, a practical example to describe your prototyping is wireframing. Okay, so where framing is something you can do on paper with pen. It's something you can do on Figma or even any other design tool. Okay, where framing is saying that we are trying to just come up with like a low fidelity, right? Um, and by the way, most designers come up with three categories. They say we have three categories: wireframing, lo-fi, and high fidelity. And you also hear some people say we have just low fidelity or high fidelity, and then low fidelity is wireframing. I mean, either of the case here, just try to understand that wireframing is when you are just sketching this out, right? And when you're done, you can use that for testing. Okay, some development teams can go as far as creating um, creating a simple application, right? The design, and then even proceed to actually implement something very simple on the mobile end, right? And they call that a prototype. It is a prototype if they have the resources to do that. If that is not looking expensive for them, then of course it is a prototype, because if it's rejected, if it doesn't work, if it fails, they are ready to go back and come up with something again. Okay, so someone said, can you take the prototype again? Sam Sami. Okay, let's go down to the prototype section. All right, so say prototyping involves creating a simple and inexpensive version of a product or solution. And the purpose of doing this is because you want to be able to explore and validate your ideas. Remember, you have so many ideas, right? Probably you've agreed on one or two, and then you can create both options as prototypes and present it to the user for testing, right? So the section of say we are prototyping here is just creating that version that can be tried out. Okay, then testing is when that version that you've created is being tried out by the users. Okay, I hope that makes sense, Sam Sami. All right, so this material is already shared. I think I just realized that the link is also on Discord. Yeah, so if you're on Telegram, I'm sure you have that link already. Go ahead and duplicate it, right? Keep it for yourself. Read through this material again. Thanks a lot, Amaka. And that's all. That's all we have for the session. Uh, yeah, so very soon we'll be getting to actual design conversations. We'll be getting to use, Figma. We are getting to that point, but I believe we still have a couple of things to discuss before we start designing. Okay, so guys, I mean, have a wonderful evening. I'll just give us another 2 minutes for those people that might have questions. All right, so I see we don't really have questions. Thank you very much, a gift. Thanks a lot, Sammy. All right, so we have the form. The form has been shared already. Go ahead and fill the attendance form, and I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful one. Enjoy yourself, and goodbye.